Number 1, Warren Moon, quarterback. Moon was both the first African-American quarterback elected to the Hall of Fame as well as the first non-drafted quarterback to get in. He said he started wearing number 1 in college because he wanted to be the number 1 guy.
Number 1, uno!
And wanted to remind his teammates who numero uno was. Number 2, Matt Ryan, quarterback. Charlie Trippi is the only number 2 Hall of Famer, but he wasn't close to Ryan in our voting. Up to this point, Ryan is the only quarterback to ever start a Super Bowl wearing the number 2, a number he chose because his hero was former quarterback Tim Couch. Number 3, Bronco Nagurski, fullback, linebacker, tackle. Bronislaw Nagurski, born in Canada, was at the center of the NFL's growing popularity in the 30s. He wasn't just named All-Pro 4 times, he was an All-Pro at 3 different positions. Number 4, Brett Favre, quarterback. Favre is our first unanimous winner. He sits at or near the top in most all-time passing categories, and his 297 consecutive game streak is still the longest of any non-kicker in NFL history.
He flipped it into the end zone backhand.
Favre first wore the number 4 in college and ended up with it by default. He wanted his high school number 10, but it wasn't available. The equipment manager telling him 4 was basically the only number he could use, so he took it, and the rest is history. Number 5, Paul Hornung, halfback, fullback. The Golden Boy was one of the anchors to all those Packers teams that dominated the NFL before the Super Bowl era got going. He received the ultimate praise from his legendary head coach Vince Lombardi, who said Hornung was the best player he ever coached. Number 6, Johnny Hekker, punter. The only punter to come out number 1 in our voting, Hecker's made 4 Pro Bowls and 4 All-Pro teams as of 2019. He's also one of the most versatile punters you'll ever see, being called upon regularly to use his arm on fake punt plays, posting a passer rating over 90 in his first 9 seasons.
First down Rams on a completion from Johnny Hekker.
Number 7, John Elway, quarterback. Elway isn't just the greatest 7 to ever play in the NFL. Sports Illustrated selected him as the greatest 7 to ever play any sport.
Elway steps up in the pocket, lets it go along to Johnson. He's got it!
Elway wore 7 in college at Stanford, but he wanted 11, which he wore in high school. But a defensive back already had it, so he had to choose between 7 and 12, and he took 7 because he said there wasn't that many famous athletes who had worn it. Number 8, Steve Young, quarterback. The debate over who wore 8 better always boils down to Young and Troy Aikman, but it was Young who came out just ahead in our vote.
Young almost falls down, throws to the end zone.
In one of the oddest facts you'll ever likely to hear about Young, he was the only 49er to ever wear the number 8 in the franchise's history, and the only one who will ever wear it as it was retired in 2008. Number 9, Drew Brees, quarterback. Brees will eventually don that gold jacket at some point, and being a member of the Hall is really the only thing Brees doesn't have on his resume just yet.
How about that, Drew Brees, baby?
Brees may be the most famous football player to wear 9, but his inspiration for wearing it, baseball legend Ted Williams.
Touchdown pass, 5-4-0.
Number 10, Fran Tarkenton, quarterback. Tark wasn't nicknamed the Scrambler for nothing. He was the first true modern-day dual-threat quarterback. His ability to elude pressure was legendary. He led the Vikings to 3 Super Bowls, though a victory in the big game eluded him all 3 times. Number 11, Larry Fitzgerald, wide receiver. Fitzgerald may be the second greatest receiver to ever lace him up, having amassed the second most receptions and receiving yards in NFL history. Fitzgerald wore number 1 in college while at Pittsburgh and wanted to continue wearing it as a pro, but NFL rules didn't allow receivers to wear it.
End zone for Fitzgerald, touchdown Cardinals!
So he simply says he took 2 of them. Number 12, Tom Brady, quarterback. As of 2019, Brady had more playoff wins by himself than 28 franchises do in their entire histories.
It's 4th quarter and it's money time for the greatest guy to ever suit it up. Makes the catch over 2 defenders.
Now, had he had it his way, his nickname would have been TB10, which is the number he wore in college. But when he was drafted, punter Lee Johnson was already wearing it, so he just went with the number he found hanging in his locker. Number 13, Dan Marino, quarterback. Marino may not have a Super Bowl ring, but that's about the only blemish on his otherwise spectacular Hall of Fame career. Marino first wore 13 in Little League Baseball for his dad's team, who let the rest of the team pick their numbers first, leaving Marino with the, quote, unlucky number.
Marino throws, touchdown!
Number 14, Otto Graham, quarterback. Graham did wear the number 60 as well, but wore 14 longer while playing for the Browns in the NFL. He played a key role in one of the most impressive runs ever by a professional football team, leading the Browns to league championship games every year between 1946 and 1955, winning 7 of them.
Graham back to pass and slings one out in the left flat to Marion Motley.
Number 15, Bart Starr, quarterback. Brian Bartlett Starr, that was his full legal name, was MVP of the first 2 Super Bowls and was the face of Vince Lombardi's Packers dynasty.
He's got the quarterback sneak and he's in for the touchdown.
He's considered one of the greatest postseason quarterbacks in history, going 9-1, his 90% winning percentage, and NFL record for quarterbacks. Number 16, Joe Montana, quarterback. He is the most famous 16 in history, but often forgotten. He wore 19 as a 49er very briefly in training camp his rookie year. That helps explain why he chose it when he was traded to the Chiefs, who had retired the number 16. Montana's original connection to 19, by the way.
Back to throw Montana.
It was his number back in his youth football days.
It'll be a touchdown for the 49ers.
Number 17, Phillip Rivers, quarterback. Rivers hadn't made the Super Bowl as of 2019, but that's about the only thing he hadn't accomplished over his career. Rivers says he chose the number 17 to honor his father, who wore the number when he played in high school.
Rivers takes the snap, stands tall in the pocket, takes a shot downfield for Mike Williams, leaps, catches.
Number 18, Peyton Manning, quarterback. Manning ended his career with over 70,000 passing yards and over 500 passing TDs.
Peyton Manning's 5th touchdown of this game.
Manning chose 18 to honor his brother Cooper, who wore it in high school but had to give the game up because he had spinal stenosis. Number 19, Johnny Unitas, quarterback. Often forgotten, Unitas was actually drafted by the Steelers in 1955, but they cut him before the regular season ever began.
Unitas goes back to pass. He throws downfield.
He was the first quarterback to ever throw for 30 TDs in a season and is credited as the quarterback to pioneer the 2-minute drill. Number 20, Barry Sanders, running back. Sanders was one of the most humble superstars any sport has ever seen.
White's free. He's on his way.
As a rookie, Sanders was playing in his final game of the season and had come out of the game in a blowout win over the Falcons with 158 rushing yards. He trailed Christian Okoye by 10 yards for the rushing title and was asked if he wanted to go back in to overtake him. His response, nah, let the other guy play. Number 21, Deion Sanders, cornerback. Deion's resume has it all, and he's the only athlete to ever play in a Super Bowl and a World Series. And why did he choose his number? Because he said he was number 2 in your program, which was the number he wore at FSU.
It's picked off by Deion Sanders.
But number 1 in your heart, thus the number 21. Number 22, Emmit Smith, running back. There were some great 22s in NFL history, but Smith was our unanimous winner, starting with the fact he's the NFL's all-time rushing leader. Smith was actually the 3rd Emmett in his family, but the only one who spells his first name with 2 T's, and that's not how his parents originally spelled it. Smith officially added the 2nd T because writers kept misspelling it.
14 more for Emmit Smith.
Number 23, Devin Hester, kickoff punt returner. Hester played cornerback and wide receiver, but he's the only player on our list who made it primarily for his abilities in the return game. No one in history has as many TDs as Hester's 20 in the regular season and playoffs.
There he goes! Devin Hester keeps making history!
Number 24, Champ Bailey, cornerback. No cornerback has gone to as many Pro Bowls as Roland Champ Bailey, who got his nickname from his mother. He played for both Washington and Denver, though neither team has retired his number.
What a hit by Champ Bailey.
Number 25, Fred Biletnikoff, wide receiver. Biletnikoff is considered one of the pioneers at the wide receiver position, his route running and hands both legendary. Biletnikoff says he wore the number 25 because his favorite player was Tommy McDonald, a Hall of Fame receiver who played in the late 50s and most of the 60s.
Stabler back, sets up, looks, throws to Biletnikoff, makes the catch.
Number 26, Rod Woodson, cornerback, safety. Woodson was so good he helped 3 different teams make the Super Bowl, and of course he won that one with Baltimore. He has the 3rd most interceptions in NFL history, and he holds the record for fumble recoveries and interceptions returned for a touchdown.
Touchdown, Rod Woodson.
Woodson also took 2 punts and 2 kickoffs back to the house in his career as well. Number 27, Steve Atwater, safety. 27 was a close one between 2 non-Hall of Famers, Atwater and Ken Houston. The Smiling Assassin was the defensive anchor to those Broncos teams that won back-to-back Super Bowl titles. He didn't make the Hall despite coming close multiple times, but his game was so respected by his peers, Ed Reed said he would give up his own spot in the Hall if it meant Atwater could make it in.
So Atwater gets a gift, 40.
Number 28, Marshall Faulk, running back. Another close call because Darrell Green was an amazing 28, but Faulk is the standard when you think of multi-purpose backs.
25-20, touchdown, yes! Marshall Faulk!
Faulk put up 5 games with over 250 scrimmage yards and is just one of 3 backs in NFL history with more than 10,000 rushing yards and 5,000 receiving yards.
This super season ends with a Super Bowl victory.
Number 29, Eric Dickerson, running back. Dickerson still holds the record for rushing yards in a season at 2,105 and most rushing yards by a rookie at 1,808.
But he just put it down into another gear. That's fun to watch.
Dickerson originally chose the number 25 as his number, but a friend told him 25 sounded like a slow number. Dickerson was so bothered by the thought, he exchanged it for 29. Number 30, Terrell Davis, running back. TD started off his rookie year with over 1,100 yards and got better and better with each year, topping out with over 2,000 yards before an injury derailed his career. Davis said he wanted the number 33, which is what he wore in college, but another back had it. He said he didn't really like 30, but said it grew on him.
Handoff, Davis running left side, breaks the tackle. Here we go, TD 30.
Number 31, Jim Taylor, fullback. Taylor had 5 seasons with more than 1,000 yards rushing and was the NFL's second leading rusher during Jim Brown's career. He even beat Brown out for the rushing title once in 1962,
Gives to Taylor over the middle. He goes to the 41-yard line.
which would end up being the only year that Brown did not lead the NFL in rushing. Number 32, Jim Brown, running back. Brown regularly enters the conversation as the greatest player to ever take the field.
And another touchdown for Jim Brown.
Brown retired after putting up a season with over 1,500 rushing yards and 17 TDs. He quit football in his prime to pursue a career in acting, going on to appear in 44 movies. Number 33, Sammy Baugh, quarterback. Slingin' Sammy revolutionized the quarterback position upon his arrival to the NFL, but often overlooked was how good he was on the defensive side of the ball. He owns what is arguably the greatest single game ever put up by a player in NFL history, throwing 4 TD passes in a win against the Lions while coming up with 4 interceptions on the other side of the ball, all in the same game. Number 34, Walter Payton, running back. Payton rushed for over 1,200 yards a season from 1976 to 1986, save the strike-shortened 82 season. One of Payton's most overlooked accomplishments, he missed only 1 game in his 13-year career, which is remarkable for any running back, but especially for one who played as physically as Payton did.
Payton now with 200 yards in the ball game, the second time he has reached that mark this year.
And don't forget his 8 TD passes either, or the fact he was one of the best blocking running backs the game has ever seen. His brother said his now famous nickname, Sweetness, came about because people were trying to make fun of his soft voice, but it ended up being the perfect way to describe his game. Number 35, Aeneas Williams, cornerback, safety. Williams started his career with a bang, coming up with 6 interceptions as a rookie. He was a shutdown corner who matched up with the game's best. His first name, by the way, means praise or praiseworthy, certainly appropriate for the way he played the game.
Intercepted far side of the field. Aeneas Williams, he's going to score.
Number 36, Jerome Bettis, running back. The Bus finished his career top 10 all-time in rushing yards, seemingly fighting head-on for every single one of them.
And it didn't look like the Bengals wanted any part of the bus.
Bettis won his 1 Super Bowl with the Steelers in 2005, which was held in Detroit, the same city Bettis was raised in as a child. Number 37, Doak Walker, running back, kick returner, defensive back. Walker, like Terrell Davis, doesn't have a large body of work to evaluate, retiring at the age of 29 to pursue business interests. Before that, though, the 5'11", 173-pound back led Detroit to back-to-back titles in 52 and 53 and led the league in scoring twice. Number 38, Arne Herbert, quarterback. Herbert is considered the pioneer at the quarterback position, as passing games hadn't been developed until he came along. Herbert's in the Hall of Fame despite throwing more career interceptions than he had career TD passes. Number 39, Larry Csonka, running back, fullback. Csonka might be the face of that famed 1972 Dolphins squad that to this day is the only team to finish the year without a single loss during the regular season or playoffs. What's remarkable about Csonka was the fact he acted as both lead running back and fullback, paving the way for Mercury Morris at times.
Another big hole open. Going through is Csonka, the 40, 30.
Number 40, Gale Sayers, running back. The Kansas Comet was a threat to score almost every time he touched the ball, and that's why he was used as running back, receiver, and in the return game. In fact, as a returner, there are some who argue he was the best the game has ever seen.
He's off 85 yards for a touchdown, looking over his shoulder.
Number 41, Lorenz ONeil, fullback. Neil actually wore several numbers over his career, but wore 41 more than any of the others.
Down by 17, I said, we got him just what we want.
LaDainian Tomlinson said, without 41, there would have been no 21, and paid him the ultimate compliment by having Neil be the one to induct him into the Hall of Fame. Number 42, Ronnie Lott, safety. Lott might be the greatest safety the game has ever seen. He doesn't get the credit Montana gets for all those Super Bowl wins, but he was the Montana on the defensive side of the ball. Former wide receivers Charlie Taylor and Paul Warfield were the inspiration for Lott choosing to wear the number 42.
The pass is picked off by Ronnie Lott.
Number 43, Troy Polamalu, safety. Polamalu doesn't have the kind of stats some other safeties do, but numbers don't adequately tell the story of his game.
Picked off Polamalu.
As his true reputation was built around coming up big in the biggest moments. As well known as he was for his excellent play, he was almost just as famous for his hair. Head & Shoulders signed him to be their spokesman and even took out a $1 million insurance policy on his famous locks. Number 44, John Riggins, running back. Riggins made it into the Hall not only on the back of 100-plus touchdowns and 10,000-plus rushing yards, but also off of one of the greatest Super Bowl runs in history.
The 35, the 30, the 20, he's gone! He's gone! Touchdown!
Riggins was nicknamed the Diesel for the powerful way he ran, unafraid of contact, often inviting it. Number 45, Kenny Easley, safety. 45 hasn't been worn by too many Hall of Famers, but Easley definitely put it on the map for his play with the Seahawks for most of the 80s. The Hall of Famer played just 7 seasons. Kidney disease cut his career short. Otherwise, he would have gotten more praise for being one of the best DBs the game has ever seen.
Picked off at a 35 by Seattle.
Number 46, Todd Christensen, tight end. Christensen said he once heard O.J. Anderson give a dissertation on jersey numbers, that numbers like 20, 21, or 22 were speed numbers. Numbers 38 or 39 meant they were good blockers, but 46, he said it was a number for a third-string fullback. He said, the defenses see a number 46 running a route and figure, slow guy, we can cover him with a linebacker.
He fires end zone! Touchdown, Todd Christensen!
Number 47, Mel Blount, cornerback. Blount is considered one of the most important cornerbacks to ever play the game. Blount was so good and so physical with receivers off the line, the NFL changed the rules so cornerbacks couldn't bump wideouts within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, the new rule being known around the league as the Mel Blount rule. He also holds the distinction as the only number 47 in the Hall of Fame.
Bryant is nailed and thrown down at the 26-yard line. Mel Blount.
Number 48, Daryl Johnston, fullback. Johnston is considered one of the greatest true fullbacks to put on a helmet. Cowboy fans would rain down chants of moose when he would make a big play, his nickname being given to him by quarterback Babe Laufenberg as a rookie because he was so much bigger than the rest of the running back corps.
Daryl Johnston has the Cowboy touchdown!
Number 49, Bobby Mitchell, running back, receiver. Mitchell played with the Browns and Redskins, a running back with Cleveland to start, and then a receiver when he moved to Washington. Known for his game-breaking speed, he led the league in receiving yards the first 2 seasons after joining the Redskins, making 3 straight Pro Bowls. He was also the first African-American to ever play for Washington. Number 50, Mike Singletary, linebacker. Samurai Mike, as he was known, was the face of that 46 defense that put the 85 Bears on the map.
Roll, bank, run, roll, bank.
Singletary's probably best remembered for his eyes, which seemed ready to pop out of his head before each snap. But as intimidating as he was to the opposition, Singletary said later that he was just trying to focus because he had poor eyesight. Number 51, Dick Butkus, linebacker. Butkus was so dominant at linebacker, they named the award given to the best linebacker in high school, college, and the NFL the Butkus Award. He is a Chicago legend, but he was almost a Bronco. Denver drafted him in the AFL draft as well and offered him more money, but Butkus chose Chicago, being he was born in Illinois, played in high school there, and went to the University of Illinois, so the hometown club was his final choice. Number 52, Ray Lewis, linebacker. Lewis's resume is probably the most impressive of any linebacker in history. Over 40 sacks, over 30 picks, and 19 forced fumbles.
Being a champion is not easy.
Lewis originally wanted a single-digit number in college, but all the numbers he wanted were taken. He says when he saw 52 was available, he jumped on it because he said 5 + 2 = 7, which is God's number of completion. Number 53, Harry Carson, linebacker. Carson was the middleman of that famed crunch bunch that Bill Parcells and his defensive coordinator, Bill Belichick, rode to a Super Bowl title.
Montana from his own end zone. Has some time. Picked off by Harry Carson. Carson to the inside to 5. Carson's touchdown.
Carson is also famous for all those Gatorade baths he gave Parcells during that '86 Super Bowl winning season, but it was his teammate Bill Burt that actually started the tradition 2 years earlier. Carson and Parcells, however, were the ones who cashed in, signing a deal with Gatorade following their championship run. Number 54, Randy White, defensive tackle, linebacker. This was another hotly contested race, with White just beating out Brian Urlacher as the greatest 54. White was one of the most dominating defenders in the game during his career, being named first-team All-Pro 7 times in 8 seasons from 1978 to 1985. Nicknamed the Manster because he was half man, half monster, White retired in 1988 in part because the team fired Tom Landry. Number 55, Junior Seau, linebacker. Seau played 2 decades and amassed over 1,500 solo tackles and over 1,800 tackles combined.
Here comes Seau, and he's sacked all the way back at the 41.
Seau's 55 was retired by the Chargers, making it one of just 3 numbers retired by the club, Dan Fouts and Lance Allworth being the other 2. Number 56, Lawrence Taylor, linebacker. LT changed the game and the linebacker position for good. To many, he is the greatest defensive player the game has ever seen.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs.
Taylor received one of the highest compliments in the game when Bill Belichick called him the greatest player he's ever coached. Taylor says he chose the number 56 because he was a fan of Cowboys linebacker Thomas Hollywood Henderson. Number 57, Ricky Jackson, linebacker. Jackson just edged out Dwight Stevenson in our voting, and it's possible he doesn't get more credit simply due to timing. His career started the same years as Lawrence Taylor's.
He's going to be sacked. Ricky Jackson with his 2nd sack of the night.
But his career with the Saints was almost just as impressive statistically. He finished his career with just 4.5 fewer sacks than Taylor. Number 58, Jack Lambert, linebacker. Lambert only missed the Pro Bowl twice, his rookie season and his final season, and he was first-team All-Pro 5 straight years from '78 to 1983.
He is hit by Jack Lambert.
Lambert was also famous for his teeth or lack of them. He actually lost the top front row of them playing basketball as a child, and dentures were the solution back then. Lambert would simply remove them before games, leading to nicknames like Count Dracula and Cleats. Number 59, Luke Kuechly, linebacker. Kuechly just barely edged out Lambert's linebacker mate, Jack Ham, in another close race. The Panthers linebacker kicked off his career in remarkable fashion, finishing with 165 tackles as a rookie. He was All-Pro in 5 of his first 8 years in the league.
You're pretty cool. You're pretty good at what you do.
The reason he chose 59? Well, he didn't. It was simply assigned to him his rookie year, He wore 40 in college. Number 60, Chuck Bednarik, linebacker, center. While Bednarik is considered the godfather of great linebackers in many circles, the truth is he was also a great center. But the hits Concrete Charlie laid down were legendary, whether it was his crushing clothesline of Frank Gifford or his game-saving tackle in the waning moments of the Eagles' championship win in 1960.
And now the Eagles jumping up and down, a happy bunch, the world champions.
Number 61, Bill George, linebacker. George beat out Curly Culp in another close tally. He is the least known of the famous Bears linebackers, but he was the original monster of the Midway. He is considered a pioneer at the middle linebacker position, being one of the first to play the position as we know it today. Number 62, Jim Langer, center. Langer was one of the best centers to ever play the game. He was at the center of the Dolphins line through the 70s, a line considered one of the best of all time and one that played a pivotal role in back-to-back Super Bowl championships.
The Dolphins have completed the greatest season in NFL history.
Number 63, Gene Upshaw, guard. Upshaw and Art Shell formed what might be the greatest left side of any offensive line the game has ever seen. Upshaw accomplished everything a lineman can imagine and holds the distinction of being the first player ever elected to the Hall of Fame who played exclusively at guard. Number 64, Randall McDaniel, guard. McDaniel played for 12 years, and in that entire time, he missed just 2 games in his entire career. He played in 12 straight Pro Bowls from 1989 to 2000, a streak that puts him in a tie for longest run of consecutive Pro Bowls in NFL history. Number 65, Gary Zimmerman, tackle. Zimmerman actually started his career in the USFL, blocking for another future Hall of Famer, Steve Young. He was one of the best left tackles in the game during his career, which ended with the Broncos along with a Super Bowl title.
Sweetness. You got it, baby. You got it.
Zimmerman was famous for his refusal to speak with the media, even getting fellow linemen to join in his boycott. Number 66, Ray Nitschke, linebacker. Nitschke is considered Packers royalty, the key cog of a defense that helped win Green Bay 5 NFL championships along with 2 Super Bowl wins.
He is looking, he's throwing the ball, intercepted by Nitschke.
Nitschke was so tough, he once famously walked away injury-free from an accident where a coach's tower at practice fell on his head, pinning him down, even leaving a hole in his helmet. Number 67, Bob Kuechenberg, offensive lineman. 2 members of Miami's famed 70s O-line made it into the Hall, yet Cooch, as he was known by his teammates, did not, despite many of his fellow linemen and his coach saying he was the best on that unit. Legendary coach Don Shula noting that he'd coached plenty of Hall of Fame linemen and believed Kuechenberg was as good as any of them. Number 68, Will Shields, guard. Shields didn't miss a single game his entire career and started 223 games out of a possible 224.
You make your mark today! You make sure you make your mark today!
From 1995 to the end of his career, he was a Pro Bowler, his streak of 12 tied for the longest in NFL history. Number 69, Jared Allen, defensive end. Allen hit the scene with the Chiefs in 2004, but made his name with the Vikings. Allen is both one of the best pass rushers to play the game.
Great jump by Allen, here it comes, he's got it! Sack number 22!
And one of its greatest characters. His unabashed love for the 80s mullet was symbolic of the fact he was one of the most entertaining personalities in the game. Number 70, Sam Huff, linebacker. Huff helped the Giants reach the championship 6 times in 8 seasons. Huff was one of the most versatile linebackers in the game, not just tackling everything in sight, but coming up with at least 1 interception every season he played, finishing with a total of 30 in his career. Number 71, Walter Jones, tackle. 180 games played, 180 starts, and from 2001 to his retirement, Jones made the Pro Bowl every year.
You ready to make it happen, baby? Let's make it happen, baby. Already.
Jones rarely got beat by anyone throughout his career and was one of the least penalized. He had just 8 holding calls against him over his 12 years in the NFL. Number 72, Dan Deerdorf, tackle. You might not know it if you only know Dan Deerdorf as an announcer, but he was considered one of the toughest linemen in the game during his years with the Cardinals. His game peaked in the mid to late 70s, making 5 straight Pro Bowls and 3 straight All-Pro teams. Number 73, Larry Allen, guard. From 1996 to 2001, Allen was first-team All-Pro, one of those seasons as a left tackle. He was one of the most dominant linemen not only of his era, but of any era. It was not a shock that he was a key member to an O-line that led the way for Emmitt Smith becoming the NFL's all-time rushing leader. And Allen is considered one of the strongest men to ever play the game, benching an astonishing 700 pounds and squatting 900.
I feel good. So he beat something up.
Number 74, Bruce Matthews, tackle. 74 was a tight race between all three of our finalists, Matthews beating out Merlin Olsen, which says a lot. Matthews played 19 years in the league, making the Pro Bowl 14 straight times to finish his career. Matthews holds the distinction as being the first Tennessee Titan to ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Number 75, Joe Green, defensive tackle. When Pittsburgh drafted Mean Joe, he was upset because the Steelers were one of the most hapless clubs of the 60s. But the pairing was a match made in football heaven, as he was at the heart of the Steel Curtain defense that transformed Pittsburgh into one of the greatest dynasties the league has ever seen.
World champ, number one! Number one!
As for his famous nickname, Green said he never really liked it and credits his famous Coke commercial for changing people's perception of him, off the field at least. Number 76, Lou Groza, tackle, center, defensive tackle, kicker. Groza once said that he considered himself a tackle who happened to be able to kick. He is one of the most unique players to ever play in the NFL, having made the Pro Bowl 6 times as an offensive lineman, all while setting records in the kicking game. Nicknamed the Toe, Groza changed the game by hitting field goals from 50 yards out at a time when attempts from that distance were a rarity. Number 77, Red Grange, running back. The Galloping Ghost was the NFL's first true superstar. The league was still fighting to gain national popularity when he was drafted, but he had made such a name for himself in college that the Bears actually went on a barnstorming tour across the country to help raise awareness around the game, knowing fans would pay to see Grange play. Chicago paid him $100,000 when they signed him, and he also received part of the team's gate receipts. Number 78, Anthony Munoz, tackle. The fact Munoz easily beat out the NFL's all-time sacks leader says volumes, but that's because he is only one of a handful of names that gets brought up regularly when talking about the greatest left tackle to ever play. He also had pretty good hands for a lineman.
Throws into the end zone to Anthony Munoz, touchdown.
He caught 7 passes over his career, 4 of them for touchdowns. Number 79, Roosevelt Brown, tackle. Brown made the NFL's all-75th anniversary all-time team and is part of the Giants' Ring of Honor. When he was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1975, he was just the second player in history to be elected on the merits of his line play alone. Number 80, Jerry Rice, wide receiver. Rice is number 1 all-time in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. While there is still debate over who the greatest running back or even quarterback might be, there is zero debate over who the greatest receiver of all time is.
Pump fake by Montana, launches it for the end zone, Jerry Rice! Oh, what a catch by Rice!
Rice says he didn't originally even want to play football, but upon getting caught playing hooky in high school, he took off running, and his principal noted how fast he was and introduced him to the school's football coach. Number 81, Terrell Owens, wide receiver. Owens came out just ahead of the great Night Train Lane in our vote.
I know you don't want me to shine, but I'm going to shine anyway, because I love me some me.
T.O.'s name is high atop most receiving lists in the record book, and he is the only player in NFL history to have scored 2 or more TDs against all 32 teams. Number 82, Raymond Barry, wide receiver. 82 was a close call between Barry and Ozzie Newsome. But Barry was to Johnny Unitas what Rice was to Montana. In 1960, Barry went for 74 catches, over 1,200 yards and 10 TDs, which few receivers at the time had accomplished.
Throws to Barry. Barry shakes off one man. Karlivas is tackled by another at the 35-yard line.
He would also go on to be a head coach, leading the Patriots to their first Super Bowl in 1985. Number 83, Ted Hendricks, linebacker. Hendricks is one of the few men to finish his career with 4 rings, and his versatility is almost unheard of. 26 career interceptions, 4 safeties, and he is the holder of a record unlikely to ever be broken blocking 25 kicks.
Kick on the way, it is blocked!
He received his Mad Stork nickname from his college teammates, who gave it to him due to his 6'7" lanky frame. Number 84, Randy Moss, wide receiver. Moss started his career with a bang, going for over 1,300 yards and 17 TD receptions.
Y'all can put that in y'all's book. I told you and I told you. Touchdown.
He also set the NFL record for most receiving touchdowns in a single season with 23. Moss wore 88 in college, but that number was retired by the Vikings, who drafted him. But they did not, however, retire Moss's 84. Number 85, Jack Youngblood, defensive end. Youngblood was one of the best pass rushers in the game during his career, but played most of his career before they officially tracked the stat, so you won't find him in many record books. He is regarded as one of the toughest and gutsiest players to strap on a helmet, famously playing his one lone Super Bowl appearance with a broken fibula. Number 86, Buck Buchanan, defensive tackle. The Chiefs built their defense around Buchanan, which was smart because he eventually led them to a Super Bowl win. Buchanan was drafted first overall by the Chiefs, which made him the first African-American college player taken first in professional football, and he did not disappoint. Number 87, Rob Gronkowski, tight end. Gronkowski was known for coming up big in the big moments, his final career catch coming in Super Bowl 53 that set New England up for what would be their 6th Super Bowl victory.
That throw to Gronkowski, folks, that one's for NFL films, and that's one for posterity.
Fittingly, Gronk also finished his final game with exactly 87 receiving yards, matching his jersey number. Number 88, Tony Gonzalez, tight end. 88 came down to Alan Page, one of 2 defenders to ever win the MVP award, and Gonzalez, who had maybe one of the most illustrious careers of any tight end.
Gonzalez, touchdown!
Gonzo played for 17 years, split between the Chiefs, who drafted him, and the Falcons. He had 600 or more receiving yards the last 16 straight seasons of his career. Number 89, Mike Ditka, tight end. Before Ditka was a cigar-chomping head coach, he was a Hall of Fame tight end. In his rookie year in 1961, he had over 1,000 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns.
Iron Mike powers for the final 30 yards on a 47-yard play.
He was known as Iron Mike, a nickname that came from growing up in Pittsburgh, which of course is known as Steel Town. Number 90, Julius Peppers, defensive end. Peppers finished his career with 159.5 sacks, had 15 different seasons with 7+ sacks, and 10 with double-digit sacks.
Rolling out, in trouble, can't throw the ball, and he gets sacked by Julius Peppers.
He wore the number 56 for the Packers for a few seasons, but will always be remembered for what he did wearing 90 in Carolina and then Chicago. Number 91, Kevin Green, linebacker. 160 career sacks, 10 different seasons with double-digit sacks, ending his career 3rd in sacks all time, with Bruce Smith and Reggie White the only 2 ahead of him. Woo! Green was also famous for his long golden locks, his look strikingly similar to wrestling star Hulk Hogan, who he eventually would follow into the ring. Green even once forming a tag team with another former NFL star, Steve McMichael. Number 92, Reggie White, defensive end. White finished his career 2 sacks short of the magical 200 mark, putting up double-digit sacks his first 9 straight seasons.
Reggie got him again! They got him again!
White was the first player in NFL history to have his number retired by 2 teams, the Eagles and Packers, hanging 92 up for good. Number 93, John Randall, defensive lineman. Randall was actually undrafted, scouts thinking he was too small. He went on to become one of the best pass rushers the game has ever seen and one of the greatest trash talkers anyone's ever heard.
I'll kick your whole family's ass!
Randall didn't just come up with his verbal assaults on the fly either. He said he would research opposing players ahead of time just to make sure he had the right ammo to get under their skin. Number 94, Charles Haley, linebacker, defensive end. Haley is just one of 2 players in NFL history who can high-five you with a hand completely covered in Super Bowl rings.
He may be. He is. He's in the ground. Haley got him back there.
Playing for both the 49ers and Cowboys during their heydays, there was a 7-year stretch that saw him play in 6 conference championships, and he was part of 10 division championship teams in his 12 years playing. He wasn't just along for the ride either, he put up 100.5 sacks in his career. Number 95, Richard Dent, defensive end. Dent was at the heart of the famed 46 defense that led the Bears to their lone Super Bowl title. Dent, the MVP of that game.
Richard Dent once again, my goodness.
Dent ended his career with 2 rings, winning the Lombardi with the 94 49ers as well. Number 96, Cortez Kennedy, defensive tackle. Kennedy did all his heavy lifting on the inside at defensive tackle.
Lambeau Field, baby, we beat us Monday night. Lambeau.
Still, he had 14 sacks in 1992, winning him Defensive Player of the Year honors. Number 97, Cornelius Bennett, linebacker. It was a close race between Simeon Rice and Bennett, but our panel went with the former Bill based on his all-around game. He was one of the most versatile linebackers in the NFL throughout the 90s, playing a key role in Buffalo's unprecedented run of 4 straight Super Bowl appearances.
Point at my crib, baby!
Number 98, Robert Mathis, defensive end. Mathis had 7 or more sacks every year of his career save his rookie year, his final year, and 1 season in which he didn't play due to injury.
You got Robert Mathis, the master of the sack fumble.
When he was drafted, he was given the choices between numbers 91, 97, and 98, and says he let his mother choose his number for him. Number 99, J.J. Watt, defensive end. 99 was stacked with options, Watt barely beating out Warren Sapp and Aaron Donald. Watt, though, has a 4-year run unmatched by any defender in the history of the game. He was named first-team All-Pro every year from 2012 to 2015, and he won Defensive Player of the Year in 3 of those seasons.
Dalton throws it, try to throw it out to right, and it's intercepted. J.J. Watt to the house.
Watt grew up in Wisconsin and started out playing hockey, which he says partially explains why he chose the number 99, Wayne Gretzky being one of his favorite athletes as a child. Number 00, Jim Otto, center. Otto was a first-ballot Hall of Famer and is in the conversation as one of the greatest centers to ever play the game. He was named first-team All-Pro 10 of his first 11 seasons, a feat no other player has matched. Otto actually started out his career wearing number 50, but changed it to 00 because it was a pun on his name. The NFL, by the way, does not allow players to wear 00 or 0 anymore. Head coach, Bill Belichick. And we conclude our list with a bonus selection, Bill Belichick taking home the honors as the greatest to ever don the head coaching jacket, or hoodie in his case.
We're champs, man! We're champs!
Belichick has overtaken Vince Lombardi as the top head coach in NFL history after molding the Patriots into one of the greatest dynasties the game has ever seen, New England's dominance spanning 2 decades and counting.